Yeah.
Rex Heuermann, another case that
Yeah.
we follow really closely here in the U.S. What's been fascinating to me, even more than Rex, is Asa, his wife. Um, that is one I'd love to get your feedback on. She hasn't given many interviews. There's been things here and there where she's shooing people off of her property. I know she
Right.
has 50 Cent and G Unit there now doing a documentary, and
Really?
God knows
Really?
they're just trying to create another version of the Jinx at the end of
Right.
this.
Right.
Get another
Right.
Robert Durst moment. But I am really curious about her actions and what she said, the way she acts. I mean, she claims to have no knowledge whatsoever that her husband was doing all these things for all these years. I mean, they lived in this hoarder type house where he's collecting guns and child porn in the basement.
Yeah.
I find it shocking that she has no clue any of this, or that at the very least that he's not having relations with sex workers. But what is your take on Asa? Is she just the the spouse victim who really was clueless to all this that was going on? Could she have possibly been involved in some of this? I don't. There's I don't know. There is some evidence to point that there's hairs of her on some of the victims. I don't know.
Ah,
There's a lot there.
yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I've not looked at any interviews with her, so I can't speak to that. But to your description of her behavior, let's just suggest that description is accurate. I have no reason to believe that you're not being,
Sure,
that's not a
it's a
decent
big lie.
description of it. Yeah. Uh, it's interesting, isn't it? You say, she already lives somewhat within what maybe you and I and others would say is a pretty chaotic environment.
Hmm.
Hoarding, that which my expectation of that is it's hard to see anything when there's so much there.
Hmm.
There's so much there.
Yeah.
Is it her hoarding or his hoarding?
I
What
don't.
who's
I'm going to guess a I have no idea. I would guess probably
Yeah.
a combination of the two. I mean, but they have a level of or had a level when they were both living together of comfort with filth, with living in a home that would
Yes.
essentially be something you'd see on orders.
Yeah, so look, here's the thing: is if we take hoarding as being a mental illness,
Hmm.
which I mean, think most people would go, yeah, yeah, okay,
Sure.
there's somebody isn't well
Yeah.
there. Um, what are many of the usual things that you and I would catch
Hmm.
that she just isn't going to be able to, just not on her radar? Because think about her
True.
radar.
Yeah.
Think about what her mind is. Our mind, there are just billions and billions and trillions of data points in the universe
Hmm.
that we can catch, but we catch so few. Why? Because we have things that are important for our attention. What is important for her attention in order for her to live the life that that she believes will help her to survive in this universe? Well, we've
Hmm.
got this idea that she's gonna keep stuff.
Yeah.
Well, then if you're keeping so much, if your attention is there, where isn't your attention? So there's that. So that it could be true. She just
Hmm.
doesn't
Sure.
doesn't see it. Where you and I would go, well, it's obvious.
Yeah.
Her be like, I no, I mean, I can't see the wood for the trees
Yeah.
here. Now, to my earlier point, when are lies useful? What is it about her existence with this partner that keeps her surviving, allows her to live that life,
Hmm.
which has a level of comfort
Yeah.
for her? She might be in mental distress, like she's there every day and she's surviving. And so what lies of his is she going to be willing and needing to accept in order to keep that? Because who else does she live with? Like
Hmm.
if she goes, you know what, I can see that you're a serial killer, and that's not acceptable to me.
Hmm.
So I'm going to move out and I'm going to tell the police about you. So there'll be no income for me anymore. And I'll lose this home. But it's okay because I've got loads of other friends who I'll start living with them, friends, family. I will be taken in. I've got around me a really soft landing
Hmm.
that because I've kept my relationships up with so
Yeah.
many other people. I don't need you.
Mhm.
And so I refuse to accept these lies anymore. There could be an element of that. She cannot refuse to
Sure.
see the lies. The lies are useful to her survival. So one, yeah, you're right. She can't see them. It's a potential. Two, she has to look past them in order to survive. Three could be, yeah, she's complicit.
Mhm.
It's 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 possible, though as probably you well understand, hairs can make their way,
Yes,
DNA
and
can
especially in a
make its
hoarder
way
house. Yeah,
to
there's
other,
you're
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
there's
to
probably
other.
hairs on literally everything in that house, to be completely honest. So for it to make its
Totally.
way out on a burlap sack over the head of a dead individual, not necessarily rocket science, so that could take place.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No,
Well,
I agree, but clearly there's some mental illness
sure.
going. Well, I mean, everywhere. I mean,
Oh, sure.
it's that's a a partnership,
Hmm.
both of which have mental conditions,
Yeah,
one of which means you have to go to prison
sure.
or
Let's
more.
talk about Rex for a little bit. Obviously, he
Yeah.
hasn't spoken much at all. In fact, I don't think he's
Mhm.
spoken other than like yes and no's in court since his arrest. But he did give an interview about his architectural firm on
Mm.
YouTube prior to any of this coming to light. What was your observations on Rex from what we did know about him when he was publicly speaking to people and being more verbal and just being out there?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about that interview, which has become almost kind of famous, I guess,
Hmm.
is that thing of, look, you aren't going to see that somebody is a psychopath, sociopath, serial murderer
Yeah.
when they're being interviewed about their architectural business.
Hmm.
I mean, it's just like, you're not, because you're not interviewing them about the area of their criminal acts, their
Yeah.
antisocial acts. Go on a date with him, and you might start to go, hang on, this is not feeling good. Interview him about his architecture. Yeah, you're going to have, his business. You're going to find somebody who you go, okay, this guy is very, very ordered.
Hmm.
Yeah, very, very ordered. You see it in his gestures as he's talking. There's an order to things. He's very boundaried. He puts boundaries around stuff. He barriers stuff. So he says, look, there's this order to things. There's these compartments to things, and they must be in their compartments. And it's what we would call very, very systematic,
Hmm.
the way he physically describes things. Oh, okay. Well, does that say that we've got somebody who's a serial killer? No, it's somebody who could certainly work with a bureaucracy,
Hmm.
and he does. So we see that we see suppressive gestures as well on specific when people aren't doing stuff that he thinks this is the way the system works, and he'll get very arrogant. His chin will come up
Hmm.
when he feels somebody doesn't understand, or they should understand the system because they invented the system, this system, but he knows it better
Hmm.
than them. So he can mold people into this system better. He'll do these downward palmed, suppressive gestures. So we do see he'll have stories about literally moving people out of his way
Hmm.
when they're not following in a smart way the bureaucracy and the system that's been set up. So it's a very, very strict way of thinking. So you got this interviewer who you can see is way more flamboyant,
Yeah.
and much more grandiose with the gestures, and fluid with the gestures. And he's laughing at this because he's going, wow, this guy is so systematized. How do I fit in
Hmm.
with him? I want to design buildings, and I want to do this thing, and then this guy just needs to fit things into a box.
Yeah.
So we can, from his behavior, see a lot about his temperament, and his the way he feels the world should run. And then if we were to put that within an environment where he's not getting the success that he wants, what would he have to do to take control that lack of success
Mhm.
in that environment.
It's
Anyway,
a
I hope that
it
gives
does.
some kind of
Yeah.
insight in
It's
that,
like
Tony.
there's a template to it, and with this template, how would this fit over in a different situation? If he's not talking about architecture, if he's putting this into another place in his life, would this man's personality fit that of which could be a serial killer?
Look, certainly, let's just say, look, there's suppressive and narcissistic elements to the way he's behaving.
Hmm.
Yeah? But like that's me some days.
Hmm.
And just so you know, I'm not a serial killer. So even
Well,
though I do
judging
say
by your
though I do
movements,
though I do
actually,
say
Mark, I'm going to
myself.
have to disagree because I'm
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
tell you,
yeah.
I'm kidding.
Well, until you can bring the evidence, we'll just suggest that I'm being accurate right now. Look, there's this element in all of us at certain times, and
Sure.
and so um, so no, it's impossible to say from this interview that you have somebody who's capable of multiple
Hmm.
killings.
Okay.
It's just impossible
Hmm.
uh, to say. Anybody who looks at that and goes, "Yeah, of course, you can see it
No,
there."
no, yeah.
It's like, no, that's nonsense. Now, of course, as I've heard from some, or certainly one person, they went on a date with him and it felt wrong.
Yeah.
Now, again, that could be a negative bias.
Hmm.
It turns out to be like that was good that your instinct went so negative
Yeah.
at that point that you went, I gotta get the hell out of here. I gotta
Hmm.
get you were
Sure.
accurate in that in that in that situation, but something felt wrong
Hmm.
about being in that kind of um, risky date environment, because
Hmm.
that is a risk. You're meeting somebody blind.
Yeah.
You don't know who they are. You don't know their background. That's high risk.
Hmm. And that's where our intuition is. That what we're picking up on is incongruencies in behavior when we kind of have that gut feeling of like, I don't know, there's something not right about that. I mean, unless, I mean, he was talking about the Long Island serial killer on the
Yeah,
date.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of
Yeah. Well,
a
okay.
red
So
flag.
there's a great example, isn't it? He's being interviewed there in the interview that we see on his architectural compliancy bureaucratic business,
Yeah.
and he doesn't bring up the Long Island serial killer. Like, okay, okay.
Must be a sign.
Now, if he did,
Yes.
you'd be going, well, how does that fit?
Yeah.
Like, why? What is your obsession with that
Hmm.
you've made this link between this, and now he does talk about tools to get your own way.
Hmm. Hmm.
The hammer. So that's an interesting point
Yeah.
where potentially we could go in hindsight. Um, though at the time when I first saw that, and he hadn't been yes, we hadn't had the interviews with the police at that point. I thought it was very interesting that he chooses that
Yeah.
tool and describes exactly around um, around how I guess things that aren't complying must be physically moved into compliance. Essentially, it's kind of very,
Yeah.
it was telling at the time, and I did say to the guys on the show, I said probably using some kind of blunt weapon of some sort,
Hmm.
using something very, very blunt and physical
Hmm.
to get his way on
Yeah.
this. I would imagine. Uh, anyway, I can't remember what the first.
No, yeah, I mean, just so fascinating, overall to understand this and to get your insight into all this, Mark. It's been so great having you on. Thank you for coming on and sharing your insights into to the body language and the behavior of these people that we look at every single day.
My pleasure, Tony. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Hey, it's Tony Brueski. If you like the podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, and press that bell so you don't miss any of our updates on the cases we're following for you right here at the Hidden Killers podcast from True Crime Today. And thanks